Good morning. My name is Kent Park, Captain in the United States Army. Thank you. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce to you our nation's top military officer, Admiral Mike Mullen, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. As Chairman, Admiral Mullen oversees all 2.2 million servicemen and women and is a senior military advisor to the President of the United States. It is very exciting and encouraging for me to see the support and active involvement of the top leaders of our military in this very important dialogue. Ladies and gentlemen, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Admiral Mike Mullen.
Thank you. Thank you, Kent. And actually, his key words there was he's a captain in the United States Army. 10 years of service, a tour in Iraq, and a young man who represents so many young men and women that are at the core of the best military we've ever had. And we want to make sure, and who serve clearly, and we want to make sure that he and his peers stick around because they are the core of a very strong military in our future. I very much appreciate the opportunity to say a few words, and it's particularly heartening to listen to the testimonials that we all just heard. I've met many young people this morning who are working here, and I'm again encouraged by their focus on service, although many of them also, when I asked them about what they were doing with their lives right now, many of them are in school, and they weren't shy about telling me that they were missing classes for a few days, but they also represent so much of what is good and what is possible for our country. I'm very proud to be here and represent our young, great Americans in uniform, 2.2 million of them, and so many of them have committed their lives to a life of service in our nation's military. Currently, there are over 200,000 soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen in Iraq and Afghanistan, many of them in harm's way, many of them serving in a way that is so representative of who we are as a nation so that we enjoy the freedoms and the democracy that we have in this country and that we can sustain our ability to choose what we want to do and to serve as everyone is being encouraged to do here. And it is because of their sacrifice and the sacrifice of their families that they are, one, so special, and two, the best military I have ever seen in the over 40 years that I have been serving. And many of them are there because of what happened here 7 years ago. And just yesterday in Washington, we dedicated a memorial to those who perished in the Pentagon attack. And just yesterday, this city, and I'm a native Californian from Los Angeles, but I love New York. And New York has forever taken care of those men and women who serve in uniform. It is easy to come here. It's always joyous to be so well received, and to have this kind of conference and this kind of commitment here in New York is very representative of everything that is great about this city. And yesterday, as everyone knows, the city that never sleeps did stop to remember the victims and the heroes of 9/11. And since that day, nearly 2 million men and women have been deployed as a result of the attacks on our homeland. And of those, over half have less than 5 years of service. And why is that important? Because it speaks to the values and the courage of a new generation of heroes. A generation who understands the gravity of the threat we face, the need to put aside individual pursuits and collectively face the challenges before us. I simply could not be more proud of these troops and their families who also serve and sacrifice, or what they've accomplished simply through their service. And you can relax. I'm not here to recruit, but if you are interested, certainly I'll talk to you afterwards. I've got some paperwork with me. But I am here to enlist your continued service, to encourage you and to thank you for all that you have done to help others in need. And I'm also here with a testimony of my own, a testimony of service that volunteered is better than service required. 40 years ago, I headed east from California to attend the Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland, having never been there before, having never been on the East Coast. And I figured I'd play a little basketball, get a decent education, and spend a few years sailing around the world. I had no idea that when I stepped off that bus in Annapolis, that I had just stepped into a lifetime of service. And today I can still say it was the best decision I ever made. Next to marrying my wife, of course. I had only planned on a 5-year hitch in the Navy, but something happened. Something got into my blood. And at sea, I became inspired by young sailors whose dedication was contagious, and even back then in the 60s, global. It was there that I discovered there is no greater reward than to serve something larger than yourself. And I believe today's military men and women would tell you the same thing. They tell me that in their words. More importantly, they tell me that in their deeds. And the armed forces are a great way to serve. There are dozens here today that are participating with you who are either on active duty or are reserves or who have served. And I'd like to ask you to just please stand up. And I want to say thank you for your service. The spirit of our troops was recently captured in a great article in Parade magazine. On patrol in southwest Baghdad in December of 2007, Army Major Jason Wagner stepped onto a rigged mortar round. In his words, "The explosion blew me up in the air and I landed inside the crater. I didn't want to look at my legs. I just lay there thinking, what's happened to me? I felt like a baseball bat had hit me." Jason blacked out while being evacuated and woke up at Brooke Army Medical Center in Texas to discover that his left leg had been amputated. When asked about his injuries, with no hint of regret or self-pity, Jason said, "I wanted to be a soldier since I was a little boy." Though his body was broken, his spirit was strong. His courage typifies that of America's all-volunteer force. This year marks 35 years since we transitioned from the draft. Today's volunteers, like Jason, comprise the finest, most professional force the world has ever known. They're the best I've ever seen, as are their families. And they have chosen to serve, and they've done it during a time of war. And as good as they are, they cannot do it alone. No one can. We depend on countless support organizations to nourish the resilience and resolve of our troops and their families. Organizations like the Fisher Foundation, the USO, the Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors, TAPS, Homefront America, Wounded Warrior Project, and so many others. These community-based support organizations help fill the gaps that still exist between programs and people. And one area I need your help in is in communities throughout the land, is to reach out to these families, reach out to these military members, those who've been wounded and the families of the fallen, and ensure that those who've sacrificed so much, have done what their country has asked for them, that they are taken care of for the rest of their lives. It is not for them about disability, it is about ability. It is not for them anything different than it has been, the American dream. They want to raise a family, they'd like to send their kids to school, they'd like an income or two in the family, and they'd like to own their home. And how we can help so many who've sacrificed so much is well within reach of this great nation. I do travel all over the country and all over the world, visiting our troops, engaging the public, speaking to service organizations. And I am convinced that there is a sea of goodwill out there made up of people, places, programs, all eagerly seeking and serving those in need. Our challenge, however, lies in connecting these programs not only to those who need help, but to each other. And you're doing that. And we must make these connections every single day on a regular basis, and indeed, in many ways, better than we are doing today. That is why ServiceNation is so important. That's why you're so important. And I hope that in addition to service, that you're also all great recruiters for those who will also serve. ServiceNation demands service leaders, leaders who can identify disparate efforts and unite them. And this audience is proof positive it matters not whether you're young or mature, wealthy or of humble means, a combat veteran or a community volunteer. All you need is a passion to serve. And Americans want to serve. It's in our DNA and it's in our blood. I also happen to be at the leading edge of the baby boomer generation. Some of you might know how old that makes me. But the baby boomer generation is retiring, has reaped in so many ways the benefits of this great nation, and we are a wealth of talent and resources. And I want to encourage my generation to reach out and continue to serve throughout the land and throughout the world. So much has already been done, and I understand that. And flying into New York this morning, I caught a glimpse of the USS Intrepid, moored here on the Hudson. I can't think of that ship without thinking of the Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund. And this was a fund that was used to build the Intrepid Center, a rehabilitation center, world-class rehabilitation center in San Antonio for our wounded warriors. It was there, with the support of his wife Brianna and son Nathan, that Major Jason Wagner received not only a new leg, but a new lease on life. When asked to describe his sacrifice, Jason said, "I didn't lose my leg to this war. I lost it in support of the soldiers on my left and on my right, and I'd do it again 100 times. For us, there are 100 other things we can do, even more, to better serve those in need. I can't do it alone, you can't do it alone, but together we can. And how we do this, getting involved, serving, leading. So many of those who serve in the military today, particularly our younger generation, their parents served. I talk to them all the time about why they came in, and so many of them talk to me about their father, their mother, their aunt, their uncle, somebody close to them who served. Taking that certainly to a much broader area of service in every area that we need it is very powerful. And this is our call to action. And I believe that history will look upon us as a generation who not only heard that call, but answered it. We are a rich nation. We have resources, and particularly financial resources. But our most important resource and where we are richest is in our people. And we need to take advantage of that, as you clearly are. And I can't say how much I appreciate the fact that you are doing that. And our most precious resource is our time. And giving that time is what is needed throughout America. Yesterday, and I mentioned the memorial that I participated in Washington. And there were many moments, and having been in the Pentagon that day when the plane hit us, and watching the response to it, and there were many moments then that come flooding back, and certainly did yesterday, and many moments yesterday that reminded me of the strength of our country, the response, from the reading of the names out loud of the 184 who died, to those who stood on top of the Pentagon, of that flag, same group yesterday, playing taps that represent the resolve of our country. And in the end, when we all stood and everyone sang "God Bless America," and in that time while singing, everybody was waving those flags that we all had in our hands. As we did then, we did yesterday. And I want to encourage everybody to keep singing, keep waving, and keep serving. Thank you, and God bless.